What's up guys, Mr. Basie here, and today we're going to be covering the summary and analysis of episode 11 of the Hunt the Truth audio series named Down to the Bone. This episode adds some fairly significant details to the entire Hunt the Truth story, all while maintaining a very suspenseful feeling throughout. With that being said, let's jump into this week's episode. Leaving off immediately where episode 10 concluded, Ben stands in his apartment building gawking at what O&I had done to his apartment. He is in utter disbelief that they would go to such extremes, but the real surprise is on the horizon. While sitting there quietly thinking to himself, he gets an unexpected call from Pharaoh in a frantic yet clear voice telling Ben that he must leave immediately, as O&I has apparently found him. This more than likely happened when he swiped his keycard to open his apartment building, as it was probably bugged. Ben doesn't seem to believe Pharaoh's warning and responds stubbornly, that is, until he hears voices coming from outside. He hangs up on Pharaoh and runs to find a hiding spot as quickly as possible.
Moving as fast as I could toward a back bedroom, avoiding the wrinkles on the floor, navigating the silhouettes of draped furniture, trying to be silent. I curled up beneath a bedroom window and listened. That was my door opening. They were in my apartment. Had I left any evidence? I needed to relax. I breathed and waited. The sounds had gotten faint. This was my chance. I could make it to the stairwell, but I had to go now. I went, and 3 strides into the living room, I could hear them coming around. I dropped down out of sight behind a couch. They were right outside. I waited. It was quiet. And then they struck. No. The agents began to overpower me. They were about to put me down when the agents crumpled to the floor. They were dead. What happened? I tried to clear my eyes so I could see when suddenly I heard one of the agents still alive. And then he wasn't. I saw the shooter emerging from the shadows, snatching up the O&I compads and stepping right up to me.
Do you trust me now?
Yes, what? Yeah.
More agents will be here in 2 minutes. You can wait here to die, or you can get your ass out that window right now.
I did what she said. Okay. I just met Pharaoh.
Once Ben and Pharaoh make it to safety, she tells him that he is in more danger now than he was ever in before, using the term, if they hadn't already, O&I has definitely greenlit you now. She then warns him that he needs to get off-world. Pharaoh says that the group she is involved in is already mobilizing in the outer colonies, and she hands Ben a compad that is apparently untraceable. In addition to his newfound ability to be undetectable whilst causing mayhem, she tells him that he also has access to the financial account of this group, and that this should supply him with more than enough money to lay low. There are also a list of safe houses that he can go where they would be expecting him. However, the good news is cut short, as Pharaoh explains in a solemn voice that something big is about to happen to hopefully secure victory against O&I. Apparently, O&I was beginning to partially recover in the aftermath of Ben's speech, and in an attempt to turn the momentum in their favor, Pharaoh was prepared to die for the cause, using the terminology that she may be going dark permanently, which is basically a nice way of saying she thinks she will more than likely perish at some point during the upcoming mission. Unsatisfied with this Hail Mary play and strongly motivated by Pharaoh's resilience and purpose, he proposes that Pharaoh wait a few more days while he checks up on Petra's lead, as it might yield some incriminating evidence to further their case against the atrocities of O&I's actions. Ben hoped that whatever he found on Bliss would be so damning that this mission would be rendered irrelevant, and he could hopefully save Pharaoh's life just as she had done for him. He said goodbye to Pharaoh, geared up, and called his transport for Bliss.
Mr. Jarrett, an entrepreneur diversifying into silicates does not usually hop on a deep space freighter to walk the glass troughs. I like your gumption, but I'd love to show you some of these projected yields.
Actually, I already have a plot in mind.
After negotiating transport up here, I understood better what the industry considered acceptable compensation. And with all the haggard men outside holding gold-plated compads, I figured the man who issued the permits would have me plundering Pharaoh's account. So, 75,000 credits later, I had access, nav, and full gear. He seemed alarmed, though, when I refused an escort.
Yeah, that's 4 clicks from here. And beyond that periphery, it's a hard slog through raw glass. Some of those formations will stab through bone.
I just signed the waivers. To his credit, he offered me some parting advice. Free of charge.
The wind really kicks up out there, and the particulate's been extremely rough. We've had to close the shutters twice in the past week. So, if you hear that alarm, you get to cover, okay? Otherwise, it'll tear your skin off.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
He begins his journey, but the real challenge doesn't begin until he reaches the outskirts of the settlement. There, he could plainly see the destruction that is notorious for a planet that has been through a glassing. After a few moments of being awestruck, Ben drudges through waves of jutting glass that keeps him at a snail's pace. He stays on his navigation device's trail, describing the ever-worsening terrain and the destruction that surrounded him. Then suddenly, he hears an extremely loud, deep sound that echoes across the wasteland. It was the alarm that a storm was coming, but thankfully, he was relatively close to his destination according to his nav device.
Ahead, I saw the ruins of a huge complex. I'd be there in no time. But then I realized it. Those weren't mountains. A black wall was coming from the horizon, and it was coming right at me. I flat out sprinted. The storm was closing in. It was the color of night and impossibly tall. I got to the ping on the map. The structure had been leveled. There was nowhere to go, and the sand was flying faster, stinging my cheeks. I looked around desperately, trying to shield my face. There was a massive collapsed section up ahead. I scurried over, bits of glass starting to spray against the debris, like tinkling wind chimes. The glass was stinging through my clothes. I half climbed, half slid down the waves that oozed and sloped to the pit, slicing my leg on the way down. The sound was deafening. I had to get in now. I started tugging at a split in the collapsed floor. The storm blasted harder, my skin on fire. I made one last push. The glazing shattered, and I slid in as the wall of glass exploded overhead, and I plunged into the darkness.
Ben assesses his situation and patches his leg wound up with some bandages that he brought along. Afterwards, he wastes no time getting to his feet to search the premises. He immediately realizes that what he has stumbled upon, thanks to Petra, is an abandoned ONI facility. A frustrated Ben prods around, not really knowing what he is looking for, when he sees something that catches his eye from across the room, a blinking light. Apparently, ONI had left an active relay in this abandoned facility. Anxious and excited to see what he might find, he quickly links up his compad to the server. Much to his delight, he discovers that although its status was listed on standby, it was still fully functional.
I started entering queries. Biko. It was current. I remembered the name of the raw file for the Biko video that Pharaoh leaked. That video popped up, and so did the second video, the one Pharaoh hadn't seen. I pulled it down and opened the footage. It was a composite of every single angle cameras captured that day. The original video just showed Chief firing down the hallway where 4 civilians had died. But I didn't see civilians in that hallway. I saw 2 janitors with a rocket launcher. I saw 2 couriers with frags, and none of them had a chance before Chief dropped them. Shot for shot, bullet for bullet, I watched him take out the terrorists, firing his handgun exactly 12 times, hitting only assassins every time. I saw the bodyguard and 4 embassy guards firing at Sakibo himself. And the best part was, the coroner's reports backed up all of it. Ray's scavenger was dead on. It was indisputable. Chief killed the bad guys killed the innocents. I found Sakibo's original request for security and the UEG's immediate automatic rejection.
I can't believe it.
I had everything I needed to clear the chief.
We got him.
But there was so much more to implicate ONI.
His next search is on himself, where he finds a mountain of information ranging from conversations with Sully to psychological evaluations about him. However, things really get interesting when Ben gets to his interviews, as well as the people he spoke to. There was outstanding evidence that ONI had completely set up the intended story for the Master Chief. The first piece of evidence uncovered was against Gabrielle Dvorak, the Vice Admiral. When she supposedly liberated John from an insurrectionist war camp, she was actually on Dwarka in 2524, a completely different planet. Next, he found the truth behind Thomas Wu, the war camp survivor. ONI had promised to fund awareness campaigns for insurrectionist war camp survivors such as himself in return for his cooperation telling the story they wanted him to tell. Jacob Walker was there too, whose real name is actually Paul Gustafson. Ben found all of his career notes on acting as well as the agreement of cooperation with ONI to retire from current acting positions so he could be used for their benefit. He even found Dion Govender, rehearsing lines with an O&I handler so he would seem more believable to anyone who asked him questions. He even searched the Spartan program, where genetic augmentation was discussed, as well as the prime age for the process of becoming a Spartan to begin, ages 6 or younger. However, when he searched John 117, his discovery can only be described as damning to O&I, and moreover, saddening for the Master Chief.
I did one last search.
John 117.
There he was, on a list in 2517. I began to follow his name on a trail of documents that continued past the day his parents thought they'd buried him. The progress reports, written by scientists, language you'd use to describe an expensive technological prototype. But they were talking about a child. They had done that to a hero. To my hero. And countless other children. I was just digging in when...
What the hell is that?
Corrupted files started hitting my compad. I immediately disconnected from the server and checked the files. They were fine.
Oh, thank God.
Then, it just shut down.
Wait, no. Oh, no.
I was terrified. Had I gone over Petra's 72-hour window? Had O&I just caught me looking? I checked the time.
Okay.
I was fine.
Okay, I'm fine.
But then,
It's okay.
what was that? I looked at the server one more time. That little standby light? It was glowing brighter, pulsing at me. I was starting to lose it, but it didn't matter. I had what I needed, and the storm was over. I emerged from the bunker. It was time to leave this sad, ashy nightmare behind. As I trekked back across the wasteland, I stepped with more confidence. I knew this terrain now, and I had O&I right where I wanted them.
Really quickly, before we conclude this episode, I'd like to point out that it is odd that the light was blinking with increased intensity after he was forced to eject his compad. This could be a multitude of things, the most common probably being a tracker being initiated, alerting O&I that their data center had been compromised in that area. However, it could also be something fatal, as it might have been injecting Ben with high doses of radiation similar to how an X-ray works, but with an increased power and radiation output. Either way, it is strange, so if you have any ideas as to what this could be, definitely drop it down in the comments below. With that being said, I hope you enjoyed this week's summary and analysis of episode 11 of the Hunt the Truth audio series. Don't forget to rate the video what you think it deserved and subscribe if you'd like to become a sage in training today. This has been Mr. Basie, your favorite sage, and as always, I'll see you in the next video.